So here we are today at the Players Club in Gramercy Park, and I have the pleasure of speaking to Nikenji.
Yes.
Did I say your name correctly?
Absolutely, Nikenji.
And Nikenji, what's the origin of your name, or the meaning? I'm just curious.
The meaning.
It's a beautiful name.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That's on my birth certificate. My parents named me that. It's from the Congo, and it means superior in mind.
Oh, wow. So they kind of knew early on that you were going to be superior in mind and body, spirit, everything.
Well, they certainly they set the bar very high from the very beginning. So.
Well, they did. Now you're originally from the Bronx, is that correct?
Yes, I'm from the Bronx, and I moved to Brooklyn sort of like half midway when I was in high school. So Bronx and Brooklyn, I claim.
Oh, cool. So when were you always interested in the performing arts?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny because my mother claims that when I was 6 weeks old, I was trying to make sounds to the sound of the water running. So she knew there was something different about me from then, and I still keep questioning her if that was 6 weeks old or 6 months
amazing.
old. But she says 6 weeks, it's 6 weeks. And so when I was growing up, probably around age 3, I had so much energy. I was bouncing off the walls of the house, and so I told my mother that, well, maybe you should take her and put her into some classes. Yeah. So my mother had put me in dance classes and piano classes, and I got exposed to music at a very early age. And then I started singing at 10, and once I started singing and realized what my potential was, it was pretty much history for anything else that kind of took priority for everything.
Now, were either of your parents performers, or did they have a musical or theatrical background?
No, they were talented. You know, they had raw talent. You know, like both my parents were able to sing, and my mother, they would sing in church when she was younger. But I don't think anyone tried to cater to it. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that they couldn't have had careers, but no one really focused on it. So they went different routes. But so I'm really the only musician, entertainer in my family.
Well, so I guess it was a combination of nature and nurture, though, because you have the natural ability that's showcased at such an early age.
Yes, and then my mom made sure that once she realized I could sing, she started putting me into private vocal lessons and programs like Conn School of the Arts, and so I was immersed in music after that, and that was pretty much all I did.
So yeah, you have an amazing resume, from what I've seen, and very diverse, which is incredible. So you attended Juilliard, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. I got my graduate studies there and focused on opera, and I got my undergrad at Manhattan School of Music. So I wanted to really I had the same vocal teacher. Both schools actually shared a lot of the faculty members, so just the programs are a little different. So I stayed with my vocal teacher, Edith Burst, throughout that entire time, and was able to take advantage of both schools, curriculum, and did a lot of performing while I was still in school. So by the time I graduated, I was pretty much working.
That's great. And now you were also Miss Manhattan, is that accurate?
Miss Manhattan, yes.
So how did that happen?
When I was going to Manhattan School of Music, so I've got a lot of teasing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, Miss Manhattan at Manhattan School of Music. But that came about because when I was 14, I won the title of Miss New York State Talented Teen. And from then, one of the judges was affiliated with the Miss America pageant, and they kind of recruited me when I was about 17, 18, once I was old enough to compete in the Miss America pageant. So the first year I got the title of Miss Manhattan, and was a runner-up in the state.
Wow.
And so after that, they're like, oh, you got to do it again next year, and this is sort of how these pageants work, where usually don't expect you to win the first year, because of the fact that there's a lot of training involved and answering questions and talents, and sometimes it takes a while to kind of get used to like what the judges want. So when I won the first year, there's like, well, then you can do it next year and do a different local pageant to get to the state. And I mean, people make careers of doing
Yeah, I was going to say, probably the other ladies you competed against, probably a lot of them were been in pageants since
Exactly.
they were 5.
Yes. So, but at that time, once I did it one time, I was pretty much.
It was a good experience, but not something.
Exactly, I wasn't trying to make a career out of it,
Yeah.
but it was definitely a great experience to have that exposure to the pageants and how that works and what goes on behind the scenes, versus what you see, on television.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yes, I think a lot of people don't respect how much work goes into participating in pageants and
Exactly.
really think it's very superficial and don't really understand.
Well, Miss America is the
It's more
only
'cause it's
one.
talent-based.
Yeah, it's talent based, and also what Miss America, and I'm assuming that this is the same, but also what Miss America does that the other pageants do not. That are mainly based on like beauty and bathing suit, things like that. Although you still have to do bathing suit for Miss America, is that they have this core interview segment that's not shown on. You'll get like a question on stage, but literally you are interviewed for a good 20 minutes to 30 minutes by all the judges before you get to. So that is actually part of the judging. Along with everything
Yeah, I
else
think
that
a
you
lot of
see on
people don't
stage.
realize that because they always hear the one question.
Exactly, you get the one
and then there's
question.
always one person who gives
Yeah,
us
I mean,
the
who's
answer.
gonna
and they
sit
make,
and who's gonna sit
Yeah.
and watch people get interviewed for 20 minutes at a time?
Well, no, because you can tell you have great poise, just even now, like in terms of conversing, like obviously that's something
If it's, I think it's the Miss America pageant. It's working with my mom. My mother had a staffing firm, so I worked in the office from when I was about 10 years old and was working with filling job orders and interviewing people and trying to, get new accounts.
Wow, at 10 years, that's great.
Well, not at 10,
Yeah,
but at
that's
10 she brought me to the office. She was like, this is what you're going to be filing. And so I pretty much start learning the business at age 10.
And that's where I'm sure, because as a Broadway performer, you do 8 shows a week, is that
Yes.
accurate? So
Yes, 8
that
shows
work
a week.
ethic is something that has been instilled in you since a early age from your mother.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
great.
She was a great, she still is a great mentor.
And so you sung at Barack Obama's inaugural ball, is that accurate?
I sure did, yes. The Commander-in-Chief inaugural ball.
Okay, yes.
And it was quite an amazing experience. Just being a part of history being made, and the Commander-in-Chief Ball was especially important because
It's based on the military, yes.
exactly.
Okay.
So they actually had it televised so that the troops overseas can watch the ball as well, and a lot of the people who were attending, of course, in addition to the diplomats and the president, were a lot of the families of the troops that were overseas fighting for the country. So
I'm
it
sure
was,
that meant a lot to them, yeah.
yeah, it was, and just being there and.
And it was a solo performance. Which song did you perform?
I did a mix of Lift Every Voice and Sing to America.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. And so now, how did you, transition from opera to musical theater or Broadway?
Well, I'm still doing opera, so I haven't given opera up. I just not doing opera 8 shows a week. That would be a little difficult. We don't do that. Like opera, they definitely spread things out. Usually it's 2 to 3 performances a week just because of the vocal demand.
Of course.
But what transitioned me from opera to Broadway was a show called Three Mo Divas. I was singing in a young artist program at Seattle Opera and had auditioned for Three Mo Divas during one of my breaks and got cast in it. And the concept was about 3 opera singers that sang in 8 styles of music. And because while I was doing opera, I was still in love with doing jazz and pop and musical theater, but was never allowed to do all of it at the same time. So this was sort of my chance to be able to have a platform to show my versatility in one show versus having to do 5 to 10 different shows to do like a jazz concert or to do an opera performance. Everything was so separated. So that is what gave me that transition. And then once I did Three Mil Divas, which was, even though the concept was based on opera, it was still a musical theater show. It was an equity production. I got my equity card, got referred to a musical theater agent, and the rest was history. I started doing auditions, going out doing auditions for musical theater, did regional. I did my first regional performance was Aida, which is one of the most demanding musical theater roles. That was my first role, like straight out of the back, doing opera, doing 8 shows a week. So that was definitely, I was like, whew, okay, it was like, this is hard, but this is great at the same time, So, and then after that, I started doing other shows like the Fantastics, and the list just goes on. And then I got my first break doing Sondheim and Sondheim, which was on Broadway at the Roundabout Theater.
Oh yes, of course. Wow. And then how did you? So Barry Gordy is your manager, is that accurate?
He's not my manager. He's my mentor.
Your mentor.
Shelley Berger is my manager, and he's been with Motown for 50 years. He managed. He still manages the Temptations, but he also managed Diana Ross, the Jackson 5. When you go and see Motown musical, which you have the history of like how Shelley was involved in Motown, and they're both best friends. And so Mr. Gordy introduced me to Shelley actually, and so I work with both of them in different capacities, and it's an honor to be able to work with legends, people that have changed the history of music in America and internationally, and to be able to say that, wow, like I've worked with this person,
Yeah, I mean, seeing the show was amazing. You don't realize all the, like, so many, performers that came up through Motown. I mean, it was pretty incredible, and I loved, the way they chronicled history, and it was interesting,
Yes.
And now one of the things that was interesting in the show was showing how, when Motown first started getting, the sales reps were having difficulty, getting white stations in the South to play, black music. Now, do you feel as an artist, and being African American, do you feel you face any challenge? Do you think it's more challenging, or do you have to be held to a higher standard than other performers?
Well, it is difficult at times because there are a lot of shows that are typecast, and like, for example, Les Mis is on Broadway right now, and they specifically say we are casting interracially. Okay. So for a show to have to say that means
that otherwise people would just assume,
exactly.
Well, I can't.
So theater, opera, musical theater, there's no difference. When you're doing productions, casting directors or directors have a certain vision, and sometimes that vision is not mixing the race. And unfortunately, you have to be able to accept that and not take it personally and move on and move on to the next gig. But and then of course there are shows that are being done based on historical figures or people who existed. So obviously I wouldn't go and audition for the role of Carole King.
Yes.
So obviously there are certain things like that. But when there are shows that are fictional or non-fictional and they're based on characters and maybe they've been played by Caucasians up until now, a director really has to make a conscious decision of, okay, we're going to change this, and so I'm always kind of like the first, hey, well, here I am. But it's, a lot has changed since then, since the 60s, obviously, but there's still a lot of changes that still need to be made, and so I think that there's always a challenge with any industry that you go to, not just music, but in business and politics and.
It's true. Yeah.
Yes.
And now you're married and you have a young child. Is that correct?
I sure do. She is 3 months old. Her name is Jazara Martina, and Jazara is an Ethiopian name, means blessed princess, because she is indeed my little princess. I treat her like that, and people are like, is she spoiled? I'm like, well, maybe, but who else are you gonna spoil if you can't
That's
spoil your
true.
own child, right? So she's like, you know, the apple of my eye.
So now, how much time did you have to take off from?
I took 7 months.
7 months, wow.
Yes, I took a 7-month maternity leave from Motown, but I still was working. So I didn't want to do 8 shows a week,
Of course, yeah.
while pregnant. But I still did a lot of orchestra gigs and you know, red carpet appearances and things like that.
And how do you feel the challenges now? You know, having a 3-month-old child at home
It's challenging, but it's still rewarding. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it makes me feel like I'm Wonder Woman or something.
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
you really are.
because you know you spend your time it's trying to manage taking care of a baby, changing the diapers, you know, feeding her, all of that stuff. Still trying to keep on top of all like the business projects that I have my hands in, and then doing 8 shows a week on top of that, and being a wife, and being a friend to people, and being a mentor, and I still teach. You know, I still have my students. So it's the household is quite crazy. But with that said, I love it, and I mean I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And now I have to go do a show.
Yeah, this is great. So good luck tonight, of course. Again, I'm sure you'll do another amazing performance.
Thank you.
So the New York run for Motown, the musical, ends the 18th. What do you have coming up next?
After the 18th, I'm leaving on the 20th to sing with Oklahoma City Philharmonic. And then after that, I'm doing a free concert at Queens Library February 7th to showcase a new musical that I've been casting for 2016 that's coming to Broadway. And it's a little early that we're already jump-starting the promotions, but we're doing new music from, it's called Akhenaten, the musical, and I'm doing the role of Queen Tai. And so that is happening February 7th. And then during the summer, I'm doing a bunch of shows with the Alpine Music Project, which is in Whitefish, Montana.
Oh, wow.
Where I'm doing Chicago and Big Fish and some private concerts. And so yes, I'm busy and doing some more symphony gigs in between there with Edmonton and Ottawa in Canada. So it's
Well,
exciting.
congratulations. Looking forward to seeing and hearing more of you.
Thank
and,
you very
we
much.
really appreciate you taking the time out for Lux Living to do this interview.
Absolutely. Well, honored to be here and happy that we're here at the Players Club, which is amazing,
Iconic
historical.
location, yeah.
Absolutely, here at the Gramercy Park.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good.